Hey guys, Fred here with AKK, all kinds of classics. So I finished spare tire holder, put a wheel in here, measured my depth. I'm making a hubcap so that I can take the spare on, run the cabling up and through for the rear view camera, the third brake light, and the reverse lights, okay? So I measured up to the back side of the rim so that I knew what my standoff would need to be, and then I'll be cutting a, can't remember, I think a 13-inch hole in here, on center, and the hubcap will be on the back side. This will go on last over the tire, and the hubcap will be mounted to that. It'll key off of a lug nut. Well, let me go the sequence that it needs to go on. The spare tire goes on, then the hubcap, which is an insert on a 3D print that has a barrel to give the proper stick out, okay, for the location of the hubcap to land on the inside surface of that. Okay, confused as mud. The wiring comes up through the center, out this hole right here, up that post, right there, and it sets at the 15-degree back angle or 75 degrees from horizontal, as this whole rack and spare tire set, as this surface sets. And the spare tire goes on, that goes on, and it's keyed off of one lug nut. Okay, I'll key it off of one of these 3 lug nuts. I don't need those 2. And what that enables me to do then is get that arrangement nice and horizontal or vertical, whatever, but get the arrangement such that it is in the right place horizontally, is what I'm going to say, relative to the spare tire. So the camera's on top, the third brake light with reverse lights will be in the middle. That is this guy right here. Okay, so these are cargo lights. This is from an F-150, 06-ish, because it provided a flat rear mounting surface. And so I gave that an angle so that this surface was vertical, because the back of the cab was at an angle. That's at 15 degrees. I think this was at like 20. So I had to tilt it up just a little bit to get that horizontal. I did a test with the camera so that I got that at an angle where the view area was behind me, but not in a sense that you can see the sky. Okay, you can see vehicles, whatever, stuff behind you, but you could back up. That white piece of paper on the ground, in fact, I put this right here. The distance from the camera to that was 5 feet. I wanted to be able to see that entire sheet of paper. At the same time, I can see just below that shelf, which is 6 feet off the ground. So the viewing area will be plenty good for my rear view. So that's all going fine and dandy. And then I'm using an old Dodge rim for all of my mock-up, and I'm in the process of ordering the rims for the car as well. And so as a result of ordering the rims, I'm recognizing what I need for backspace and all that, and I'm finding that what is critical is that a spare that fits in the front and the back becomes important. This rim as it is would not fit on the back because it's a 15-inch rim, which is fine for the spare. It'll be powder coated and finished and all that. But in this particular case, that inner ring was too small for the rear hub, even though you're looking at a rim that's like this one. Secondly, as I may have mentioned, if I bolt this rim on with its back spacing, it'll hit the inner fender. It has positive offset, or the tires move too far in, and it won't bolt up. So I may have done a video in the past, because I started doing this in the past and then it's just sat idle. But you can see clearly there are differences between that rim and that rim. So I took one of those rims, this one, I cut the welds, took the center out of the rim, flipped the rim over. There was no tire valve on this side, it's on the other side, and then pressed it at the, because I only had a weld. Why did I flip it over? Because this weld ring, where the center is mounted to the rim, everyone has them. Okay, this would be looking at the back side of that rim, the front side of a normal rim. This is welded very near the back. I could not go that direction any longer. I could get about a half of an inch, if I remember right. Yeah, I could get about a half of an inch, and that was it. And I needed more. I needed to bring this rim out or push that hub back. So I just reversed it and put it on. And I finished welding it up this morning. And before I did that, while I had this out, I chucked this up on the turntable, centered it, and took enough material off so that it would fit on the rear hub. And of course it's a little wider on the front hubs. That's a standard Ford Granada, and this is an aftermarket 9-inch Ford rear axle. And so it'll be lug centric up there. It's hub and lug centric back here. Not a big deal. I only had to take about, what the heck was it, 30 thousandths on the diameter, 15 thousandths out of it, just to get it to fit. But it needs to go on, right? And there's no lug nuts on there, but it's all the way in at this point. In order to chuck that, rig that in my turntable, I have a four-position turntable without getting super elaborate. If you look, this one doesn't have it. And this is a Dodge rim though. Don't know why. But that one does not have it. But this one did have a small hole right here. And that hole was about 1/4 of an inch. I just opened that hole up to 3/8 of an inch. And then of course my studs are 3/8, so I could run it down in there. I could dial it on center. Had enough wiggle room to dial it on center and open it up. So now I have a spare. There's ironically, no, I can't. I was going to say there's a difference in the back spacing. It's a significant difference in the back spacing. And of course, the position of that on that will move what? The tire will sit farther out when I put that cover on. I made the component, the standoff for the hubcap, that'll be 3D printed at like 5 inches. It's basically just a tube with a lug centering. On the inside, it steps in to the ID of this tube, and it is smaller than the OD of this hole, the original hole. So the wheel will slip off and on, kind of irrelevant because it'll have to come off anyway, but it will slip in through the center of the hole when that barrel goes on and locate itself. So because I made it 5 inches long, I can chuck it up and take whatever I need off to get it very precise to this. So the point being is I made it, you know, on a 9-inch rim, wide rim, it would 5-inch back spacing would be center, right? So I'm only using a 6-inch rim with a 215 tire of the proper diameter so that it matches the others. I got 27.5-inch tall tire all the way around. That's the plan. These wheels will be set farther in. The actual rim size that I'm going for is a 20 on the back and a 17 on the front, both with 27-inch rims. But a 245 or a 255 is what I can get in there. I think a 255 is going to get too aggressive. And I'm going to mock up with these, which these are, yeah, 245, 45, 20s. I'm going to mock up with these, and I'll replace with those because I got a tread pattern for the front that matches this tread pattern on a Continental tire, just like this is a Continental tire. So these will be set in, and the offset will be such that I can't remember what I all measured because this has been a couple of days, but the wheel will be set in closer to the center, but this will be very shallow outside, and then this will be a very deep on the outside. So it'll give that visual effect. So what I'm going to work on today then, so that's coming, and you'll be able to see that. But what I'm going to work on today is the wow in this fender. It's a fiberglass fender. Other side went on nice and straight and good, but this one, let me back up. These sit in stock for years. I mean, they make a batch of them, then they just sit. And depending on how they're sitting in inventory, if there's a load on them, you know, if they're stacked up and this one's on the bottom as an example, this is going to start to spread. And like any plastic, it, you know, you do it long enough, the memory is gone and it's stretched. Anyway, so I put that in. I'm not going to wait several years, but I can see right where I drew that line, there's some wow in there. My theory is that if I take a cutoff wheel and cut it there, it's going to be tight. It's going to continue to tighten down on me because that's pushed in, and that material had nowhere to go but in on the outside. So I'm going to take a slice out of that until I have a gap. That's my theory. I hope to gosh it when I cut that, the cutting wheel tightens up on me. Or the saw or whatever I use to cut it. I'm going to start with a cutoff wheel. And then get that pulled out, and then I'll have to sit, you know, grind out material and then rebuild it back up. But then that piece will be done. Then I'm going to start on today is Thursday. On Monday, I'm going to my brother's house. He has a large English wheel. And I am going to build the skin for this hood. I spent a good amount yesterday tapping and hammering and tapping and hammering and adjusting the hinges and getting everything dialed in. And it is dialed. It is dialed in. I can take a straight edge now. I can take a straight edge and lay it across here. And you can see, oh, can I do that? Let me, there. You can see as I work my way to the back, try to stay in focus. I mean, there'll be a gap there, obviously, but I'm just a little bit off the bottom. And I probably have, this is probably closer to, not a 1/4 of an inch, but this is 1/8 inch aluminum. So I probably half the distance up here. So that gives me enough glue area on this. Same thing in front. And then, of course, the seal is going to sit on the front of the cowl. They all sit right in this area. and that allows the tin to stay off of here. On the front, might be a touch high there. Am I latched? Oh yeah. So I'm in the latch area, and of course this can be adjusted up and down a little bit. So, but I'm in the latch area. When I'm full down, I have about 3/16 for the seal that goes on here that wraps around the grill shell. Went around the whole thing, wrote up in red here. This had to come up, areas had to go down. I had to bend this up a little bit between these two areas. It fell in, or it what was it? Oh, it was high, and I had to knock it back down to 90 degrees. And so I'm very, very happy with it. This will bond with the same kind of glue that a OEM hood bonds to. I'll probably put some spots a panel bond down on the sides, because this will be pretty structural. It's going to have to go over the top of the hood sides. And then I'm going to get gas struts for the bottom. I just don't know where to mount them. If I want a bridge from point to point on the hinge, or from a point on the hinge to the bottom hinge to the firewall, which I think might look kind of goofy. I don't know. But I want to get gas struts on there. So I'm researching that right now. The whole thing there is that I need to know how much force it takes to lift this hood up so that I get the right gas strut. You don't want to get a 100-pound gas strut for a 10-pound hood, but the weight of the hood is all fine and dandy if the hood weighs 10 pounds and I lift it up with a fish scale and it takes 10 pounds to lift up, that doesn't necessarily translate. It doesn't at all translate to the load that's required way back there. So the weight of the hood is a significant piece, but the amount of force required to lift that hinge is a significant piece. It isn't going to be I very much doubt that there'll be 100-pound struts, but they're going to be something more significant than 10-pound struts. So playing around with that. Later, after I get the skin put on. Headlights mounted. They're not, interestingly, even though when I set it up, I measured everything, the buckets aren't totally parallel. Along with the instructions for these headlights were to grind the tabs on the head. There's 3 location flat spots on these, just like anything back all the way back to the 30s. But what I need to do is I'll need to widen them out a certain direction to put them in and then clock them. That's no big deal. Tested the blinkers, driving lights, high and low beam on them. Everything works great, except for I still have a factory non-LED flasher, so I ordered some flashers for the hazard and the blinker setup on here that are LED compatible. It'd be ordering my second set. The first set was a joke. It didn't work. If I need to go to load resistors, I'll go to load resistors. I'm trying to stay away from load resistors, actually. These are wired through into the harness. Everything is wired through into the harness at this point for lighting anyway, in camera and reverse and everything. I tested it. Exhaust cutouts are in. The mounting brackets are in. So I'm starting to get a little bit excited about the whole project. And now I just want to, let's get out of here. There. Now I just want to start getting that gingerbread fixed so I can begin blocking out the body. So thanks for keeping up with me, and of course any advice, and I do get it. I do appreciate the comments. If you've got any comments, suggestions, ideas, whatever, shoot them my way. This is what I'm working on. These are the things that I'm working on right now, and I'm going to get into blocking and finishing out the sides. I want to get the whole car in surfacer shortly. When this sheet metal is finished, I want to get it in surfacer and let that stuff shrink for as long as it needs to while I yank the body off the frame and finish up the chassis. Okay, then I got to thinking, I just cut it now. I got to thinking, wait a minute. That stress should all be just piled up right down there. So I'm not going to take the cutoff wheel and cut it. I'm going to take the cutoff wheel and get into it up here and then start cutting down the side. And indeed, she just bit the bit, grabbed my blade bit right here and just held on like a mother. So good news. Good news. That's what I wanted to see, because I know it's pushing right here. So now I'll just continue to go down and down and down until I get that free. And then what I'm going to do, you know, just need a straight edge, right? I can get in this, whoops, let me get my finger out of there. So I just basically, I have this cabinet, right? It's got plywood sides, it's got top. You know, it's like most cabinets. But it has a flat surface. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get the front. There we go. Get it up against. There, you can start, now everything kind of comes out pretty straightforward what the hell's going on here. So I just need, I can put a light down there, but you could see it right there. So I'm just going to continue to cut that, continue rolling the cabinet up to it, back and forth. Plus it serves well as a bench. Anyway, until that pops all the way out, then I can brace it and start to work it to get the glass in. So going after it. All right, so I got her chopped. I cut it back to, oh, as close as I could get to here. All the way down. Now I'm just clamping it onto the, I grabbed two of the flat areas a relative distance away. And then I put a 2x4 on the back, grabbing this area and screwed it to it. Now the thing is, there's a little stress, so I'm going to leave it set for the night. There's a little stress in it because it's still having, it's not just coming out once I got my slot in there. So when I come back in the morning, what I'll probably do is first relieve that screw. Now that this will all stay here, relieve that screw, see if it drifts in. If it drifts in, it's not going to do a whole hell of a lot of good putting the just putting fiberglass on it, because it's going to want to return back to that shape. So I might need to do a few cuts. I just don't want to, like, this is flush. All this is flush still. I don't want it to not to be flush. So I got to think it through, and that's what I'm going to stop for the day on what I want to do to assure that I can get this, find the areas where the stress is, get that out so that it relieves that stress. So I'm thinking I'm going to be somewhere on the top or on this radius right now with where that stress is at, but I just gotta dream on it. Anyway, this is a board that I used to make these, but it was a nice, sturdy piece that I could use for straightening it out and holding it for now. So more on this later. All right, let's have a look-see here. You saw this cut. I woke up this morning and I started cutting this, and I said, whoa, and immediately it slammed shut. So I opened it up a little bit here. In all my cuts, I came around the curve. If it was dreaming about this, it came around the curve. This slammed shut right here. So then I came back and I did another one right here. That's not Sharpie, that's the cut. That's Sharpie, that's where I wanted to end. So when I did this first eyebrow, I pulled the material out and I held it, just with a block of wood laying around right there. Held it out and I saw that it was still puckering right here. I marked the pucker and took it out. Now you can see with just minimal effort now I can get it together. You can see this was the lowest spot, but you can see exactly what's going on here now. Somewhere in here, when I bolted the fender up to the body, it may have been laying, but it wasn't, because now it may have been, my earlier comments were, hey, when it was laying down it took a shape. There's a ledge right here. There's a ledge right here. And then it's flush. Well, flush, I got it clamped, but 2 pieces of wood. Flush, flush. But when I pull, it's all pulling there. It felt relatively dramatically right in here. So there must be, within the shape of the fender, you know, this is a, if you watch the videos, you know this car has been recreated many times, I mean substantially, and very well could have, even though I use gauges, because that goes in there 2 inches into the inside to bolt through, you know, to bolt up. There very well could be the radii on the inner fender. It could be anything. Could be anything. But the thickness of the fiberglass, a high spot, anything like that. But it's bolted up, and I was not able to get this out through any other means. So now I can. I'll take it out, grind all this down, block this. They're just minimal. I mean, it's just nothing in terms of pressure now that is in the material, stress in the material. So I'll pull that out. I'll grind that down about half the distance, about half the thickness. It's 1/4 of an inch. So I'll go down about 1/8 of an inch all the way around this area and start layering up, narrow and wider and wider and wider and wider until I come up to the surface, just to the surface. And on this side, then I'll have to remove the fender and do the same thing on the other side, so it does wind up being fiberglass all the way through, no seam buried somewhere in the middle of the glass. So we got it. I'm excited because it's not going to be a super involved job. I was getting a little nervous that it may be. I will just need to fix a piece. I mean, most of it came out. You see the blue tape? That's a straight line that was used for setup. You can still see it right there. But I can it's going to be too hard probably to do it this way, but I can very easily pull it right out to the line. Let me get on there. If I can get the line. I can't do that. Anyway, so I'll get on that. It is straight. It will work. And I'm happy. So now I got to do all the fiberglass sanding work. Make sure you have a mask doing this. Otherwise you'll be sick for a month. I know, trust me. All right, I hate fiberglass. I hate it so bad. But because it makes a mess, you know. You wear a respirator, wear a full body suit, you know, that kind of stuff. Anyway, I got in there with a 24 grit, and I, you know, you can see I went about 1 inch out to remove some of the gel coat, but I dug this. If I can get a shot of the profile, I mean, this is just way down, looking down in there. If I can, you can see she narrows up pretty good. But I'm way more than half the distance down. Oh, here, look at that. You can see the profile on that edge. It's kind of hard on video, but it's just way down. The corner, I'm sure this was probably chop gun shot, but if it were laid up, there would be multiple areas in the corner. So now what I'm doing is, that's thinned out, so things got a little flimsy. So I got the jack holding the back. Got a really nice profile on it. A lot of material came out. And you can see in the sense of the gaps how things opened up as I got it all clamped together. This one got tight, but he didn't close. He didn't close. So, I mean, everything looks good. I will end here. When I take the fender off and do the bottom side, I will collect up all that. This is one of those panel mounts. I'm just holding all four corners together on the same plane, so when I glass it up, I'm not going to struggle. So now I'll start putting strips on here, starting narrow and working wide, and get her all put together. I wish you could see the amount of material. I mean, that's a good 3/16, way more than an eighth. So I'll get quite a few layers on there and get that sucker beefed up. Oh, I love fiberglass. All right, so now we have a layer. I put a layer of cloth down first. That's matte, for those of you that don't know, and that's cloth. Matte is for build. Cloth gives you cross-sectional strength. But the reason why I put, and that's good, most of these are just pretty much sprayed up with matte. There might be cloth on the very outer skin because it gives a much better surface. It doesn't give that textured surface. It gives the surface like that there. And that there. I just put some matte in because I consumed the rest of the resin, activated resin. So I just basically came up to this. I might have to take a utility knife and cut around it a little bit so that I could get that structure to lock in just a little bit. I'd like to be able to take that out and drop in a piece of cloth and then obviously start my build-up. That's going to stay for a little bit until I get down to there. That's not a huge concern because I'm holding it all together right there. But after I get some build on here, before I flip it over and do the bottom, take it off, flip it over to the bottom side. Anyway, so another reason for the cloth is now when I start grinding the other side, obviously I'll see the crack, but the cloth will expose itself as I widen it out, and I don't want to cut through the cloth because that's the base layer, right? That's right. That's where I'm at zero, ground zero. You won't even know that when you're grinding the back side, and you don't want to cut through all the way to this side. It's a waste of time and a waste of energy. It's extra work. So again, a layer of cloth, a layer of matte for most of it, and now we'll just let that cure out with the intent of taking that off. And we won't let it cure out fully, but the plan is to try to remove that, and then move on and start building the layers. So that's where we're at. We got a ways to go, but pretty happy with it so far. Well, it's 3 layers later. Between this, that, and the other thing, I was able to build it up pretty good. I think at this point now, I just finished this last layer. I'm going to take some 36 and block it because I know I probably have some high spots. I think most of it's low, but 3 layers are on, and if I just want to get this to a finish. I'm not going to gel coat it until it's done, but I just want to get it to a finish where I can pull the fender off, of course, and start the process over on the underside, which consequently I think will be a lot easier because I took more than half, probably about 75% of the material I took out of it on the way down. So that's good. But I think probably we'll need to get another layer on it, and maybe get a layer of cloth or 2 layers of cloth on it. Remember, again, that's the smooth stuff, so that I can sand it and try to get a decent surface. The one thing about this is, you know, every once in a while, right there and right there, you know, it's fiberglass. It's going to have air pockets, and that's kind of why I think I want to block it out. I can always come back with those air pockets. Sometimes I use the ground, you know, the hairs that wind up sitting there, and I tuck them in and just make sure that it's not just simply resin. But depending on how large they are, of course. But I think this is going to leave this guy set. We'll block it and see if we can hit the low spots with some more matte, and then get a couple of layers again of cloth on there. So more to come. All right, so after sitting for the night, I took in this morning and grabbed some 40 grit and just blocked it out. Just a quick, you know, rub down till I hit the gel coat on the existing Fender. You know, here you can see I went a little bit under, but basically just knocking it until I get down to the gel coat, and it actually turned out better than I thought it would. Now I've got to grind this out a little bit and finish this. That little piece stuck behind it because of the bleed through on the crack. That's where I had the clamp. But anyway, I'll grind a little bit of this out and I'll start to fill that. I won't be able to get up into there until I take it off, but I'm going to leave this low, right, so that I can blend that over. I got a couple of spots here. They sanded down, but they're not that low, so I'm just going to go ahead and use filler on those before I gel coat it. And let's see here. There's very minimal. When you see a white area like that, you know, it's either piled up with sanding dust or you're sending right down to an air pocket. But I was able to, there was one here that I dug out that I showed in the last video. There's another one, but that one sanded through the air pocket. But all these I will clean out. You know, take a pick and clean all these white spots out because they're air pockets, right? And get those out of the way and get them solid. So, you know, if I don't know if I might, you know, put a little, if I have extra when I do this, I might put a little in here and here and here just to build out the fiberglass. But structurally, I mean, it's kind of useless. So I'm very happy with it. She straightened right out. I mean, it's beautiful. I'm very, very, very happy. You know, I hear people say that and they take pride in themselves. Hopefully that's how it's interpreted, as they're taking pride in themselves, not just gloating. I'm not gloating. I'm somewhat surprised, but extremely happy that is where it landed. So I'll just keep plugging away. All right, so now I'm about built up to where I want to be. And you can see some more glass there and some more glass there. That had nothing to do with this repair. It had to do with when they cut, whomever manufactured this, when they cut it out, they cut that narrower. The bead that goes around, you can see I marked it with a pencil, got narrower right there. So basically I just took the pencil on one end and a Sharpie on a sharp point on the other, and spaced it and traced all of them with that space. And as I got farther away from the top of the bead, right, I knew that my distance was getting narrower on the bead. So that was the area that I repaired. Of course, I wanted these to radius into the bead on the floorboard, so I sanded those out and put material in there. Excuse me. Same thing here. So on this car, basically these fenders were clocked this way, just slightly this way from the 33 to get the grill down as low as I could get the grill cosmetically. But these dovetailed up on both sides just a little bit. So I need to add material there and readdress that bead in that area. Not a big deal, to match the bead along the fender. And then these were clocked this way just a little bit, but if you recall, I cut off over 6 inches, no, about 6 inches of that fender. And that's so that I could get an apron fabbed in and all that, because again, these fenders are from a 33, this is a 1930. And of course did the same thing on the other side. And I'm just draping right now. I'm just draping because I'll pack the inside after this cures out. I just wrapped tape on the inside, slid it in on the inside, wrapped it here. Tape is a great tool for glassing. It actually tends to melt the glue on the inside as it heats up, but no big deal because you can get the tape off without affecting the material behind it. So I'll have to very carefully sand down to the tape so I can get any of the fiberglass that's hanging over on the tape off. Then I'll be able to pull the fender back and then of course finish out these corners. Same thing here, same thing there. So I'm about to the point where I can yank that fender off now. Yay!